Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
If people don't know the name Louis Armstrong, they might know me as Satchmo, or maybe just Pops. I spent my life blowing into a trumpet, singing the blues, and sharing a smile with the world.
It's an honor to have you, Pops. Let's take it back to the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I drew my very first breath right in the heart of New Orleans, Louisiana, on August 4th, 1901.
What was your given name at birth?
Just Louis Armstrong, plain and simple, though folks pronounced it Lou-E.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
Not a whole lot of mystery to it, but years later a lot of folks started calling me Daniel for some reason. I'd read things saying my name was Daniel Louis Armstrong, but I never knew where that came from. I always told people Daniel, that was never part of my name. I just stuck to Louis.
That clears up a major rumor right off the bat. So what was your hometown like growing up?
Oh, New Orleans was a wild, beautiful, and loud place. The section I grew up in was so rough they called it the battlefield. You had gambling, saloons, and trouble on every single corner, but you also had music pouring out of every open window. You could hear honky-tonks rocking all night long, and church spirituals lifting up the daytime. It was poor, it was dangerous, but it was alive with rhythm.
Sounds like a place that shapes you fast. What was your family life like?
It was pretty tough, Calvin. My father, Willie, worked with turpentine, but he walked out on us shortly after my little sister, Mama Lucy, was born. My beautiful mother, Mayan, was just a teenager when she had me. We didn't have much at all. For the first 5 years of my life, I lived with my grandmother, and then I moved back in with my mother and sister. We were always scrambling just to get a bite to eat.
It takes a lot of grit to get through that. What kind of kid were you?
Oh, I was a little hustler, but always with a song in my heart. I was the kind of kid who was always looking for a way to make a nickel to help my mother. I dropped out of school around the 5th grade just to work, but I was happy. I'd sing on the street corners with a quartet of other boys, harmony, singing for pennies. I had a lot of energy, maybe a little too much sometimes.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
Growing up in the battlefield, your biggest fear was just not making it through the night. Seeing the violence in the streets, you worried about your family staying safe and whether you'd have enough food on the table the next day. Starvation and the rough crowds were always lingering right outside the front door.
I can't even imagine. What did you dream of becoming as a child?
To be honest with you, when you're that poor, your biggest dream is just to have a full stomach and a warm place to sleep. I didn't start out dreaming of being a big shot musician. I just loved music because it made me feel good. Once I started singing and hearing those brass bands passing by in the street parades, my dream shifted. I just wanted to be a part of that sound.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
Well, since I left school when I was only 11, I didn't have a whole lot of school days to look back on. But when I was at the Fisk School for Boys, I loved any time we got to sing or listen to music. Anything that got me out of the books and into a melody was all right by me.
Hey, real-world experience came early for you. What was your first job?
One of my very first real jobs was working for a wonderful family of Lithuanian Jews named the Karnofskys. I was just a little 7-year-old kid, and they hired me to help out on their coal and junk wagon. I'd blow a little tin horn to let the neighborhood know we were coming. They were so kind to me. They'd even invite me to sit at their dinner table and feed me.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I don't know if I felt different from everyone, but working with the Karnofskys opened my eyes. I saw how other folks treated them poorly just because they were Jewish, and it made me realize that we were both outsiders in a way, dealing with the ungodly treatment of the world. But musically, the moment I realized I had something special was when I could just hear a tune once in a honky-tonk and whistle or sing it back perfectly by ear.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Oh, that's an easy one. Though it didn't feel small, it felt like trouble. On New Year's Eve in 1912, I brought my stepfather's pistol out into the street without permission and fired a blank into the air to celebrate. Well, the police didn't think it was much of a celebration. They arrested me and the judge sent me to the colored waifs home for boys. It felt like the end of the world right then.
But that ended up being a massive turning point, right? What was your biggest break?
It sure was. While I was locked up in that Spartan waifs home, the bandmaster there, a strict but great man named Peter Davis, took me under his wing. He gave me my first formal musical training, handed me a cornet, and eventually made me the leader of the home's brass band. That was the spark. Then my next massive break came a few years later in 1922, when my idol, the great Joe King Oliver, sent me a telegram asking me to come up to Chicago to join his Creole jazz band. That put me on the map.
King Oliver sending for you must have been incredible. What were your biggest struggles before success?
Before that call to Chicago, I was doing backbreaking work just to support my mother. I was delivering heavy sacks of coal, selling newspapers, and playing music in small, dangerous clubs for barely any money. When I left the Waifs home, the temptations of the old neighborhood were right there waiting for me. I even had a relationship with a girl named Nutsi that went so sour she stabbed me right in the shoulder. It was a tough, scrappy existence.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Quit music? Never, Calvin. Music was my lifeline. Even when my lips were bleeding and my chops were completely blown out from playing all night, I never thought about putting the horn down. The music came first, always.
That dedication is legendary. Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
I was a man of the row, so routine kept me sane. I always made it a point to arrive at my gigs 2 full hours early. I'd sit in my dressing room completely dressed and prep myself. I'd take a swig of glycerin and honey to wash out the pipes, use a little Malox if my stomach was acting up, and look after my lips. And I caught up on my letters. I wrote thousands of letters to fans and friends on my portable typewriters. Oh, and I had to have my herbal laxative Swiss Chris every single night. I swore by it. I even had a card printed up of me sitting on the throne that said, "Leave it all behind you."
That is absolutely amazing. What job would you have had if fame never happened?
Shoot, I probably would have spent my days driving a coal wagon or working on the Mississippi riverboats. I loved the riverboats because they kept me near the water and the music, even if I was just doing manual labor.
What was your life like right before fame hit?
Right before Chicago, I was finally starting to make a name for myself around New Orleans. I was playing on the Mississippi riverboats under a leader named Fate Marable. That was a wonderful time because Fate forced me to learn how to read sheet music, which I didn't know how to do before. I was earning a steady living playing funerals, street parades, and dance halls, but I was still just a local boy.
How did relationships change after success?
Well, when you start making it big, your circle changes. My second wife, Lil Hardin, was the pianist in King Oliver's band, and she was the one who really pushed me. She told me I was playing second fiddle to Oliver and needed to step out on my own. Success brought new opportunities, but it also meant leaving old friends behind in New Orleans to head up to New York and Chicago.
Did fame bring happiness?
Fame itself didn't bring the happiness, the music and the people did. I loved giving a good show. Seeing a crowd smile and forget their troubles for an hour, that's what made me happy.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
You spend your entire life living out of a suitcase, sleeping in anonymous hotel rooms, and eating takeout food late at night. It can be a very lonely lifestyle, moving from town to town, catching planes and trains, and blowing your chops off night after night.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
Some people looked at my big smile and my stage persona and thought I wasn't taking the music or the struggle seriously, but it was hard work, man. I spent decades working myself to the bone. That smile wasn't fake. It was just my way of spreading joy in a world that could be very dark.
What was your darkest moment?
Some of those early years in New York playing with Fletcher Henderson's orchestra in 1924 were frustrating because they didn't quite understand the New Orleans style I was trying to bring, and physically my health caught up with me later on. In 1969, I was laid up in Beth Israel Hospital with severe heart and kidney problems. Being stuck in a hospital bed, unable to play my horn or see my fans, that was a very heavy, dark time for me.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
I always felt a bit of sadness that my father never really welcomed me into his life. When I was a teenager, I lived with him and his new family for a few months, but as soon as they had a new baby, he made it clear I didn't belong. I wish things could have been different there, but I had to move on.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
People sometimes didn't realize how much I loved to write and document things. I wasn't just a guy who picked up a horn and played by instinct. I spent hours recording tapes, writing memoirs, and reflecting on my journey. I put a lot of thought into my history, especially my time with the Jewish families in New Orleans who helped mold me.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
Back in my younger days, playing at a dance hall owned by a fellow named Henry Ponce who had ties to some shady characters, things could turn dangerous in a flash, fights would break out, and you had to know how to navigate the underworld of the music scene. I handled it by keeping my head down, focusing on the music, and relying on my good friend and bodyguard, a big 6-foot drummer named Black Benny, to keep me out of harm's way.
Black Benny sounds like a good man to have in your corner. Did fame and fortune change your life?
It changed my circumstances, sure. I went from sharing a single mattress with my mother and sister in a one-room shanty to being able to travel the world, but it didn't change me. When I could afford to live anywhere in the world, my wife Lucille and I chose a very modest, regular house in an ordinary neighborhood in Corona, Queens. I didn't need a mansion, I just needed a place to call home.
What personal battles were you fighting privately?
Just the constant toll on my body, my lips, my chops, were always taking a beating from the pressure of the mouthpiece. I had to use special salves and constantly manage the physical damage of playing the trumpet the way I did.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My mother, my Ann, for always doing her best to keep us together, and Joe King Oliver. Joe was my mentor, my idol, and like a father to me. Everything I did on that horn, I did because I wanted to make King Oliver proud.
What was life like in your final years?
I spent my final years mostly at my beloved home in Queens with Lucille. Even though my doctors told me to slow down because of my heart, I just couldn't stay away from the music. I loved handing out ice cream to the neighborhood kids on our street, but only if they finished their homework.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
While I was recovering in the hospital in 1969, I poured my heart into writing a memoir all about my youth and the Karnofsky family, called Louis Armstrong plus the Jewish Family in New Orleans, LA, the year of 1907. I wanted to make sure that story was told.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I passed away right in my sleep at my home in Corona, Queens on July 6, 1971. A heart attack finally took me. I was 69 years old.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I absolutely love to cook and eat, and I used to sign off nearly all of my handwritten letters with the phrase, "Red beans and ricely yours." I even collaborated with Lucille to write out a full, detailed recipe for Creole red beans and rice, and we explicitly recommended taking a laxative 20 minutes after eating it to keep things moving.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
Oh, there was a rumor that went around much later claiming I had a secret daughter from an affair back in the 1950s. People loved to talk, but I just kept my focus on Lucille and my music.
What was your most unique habit?
Besides my Swiss Chris routine, I smoked gauge, what folks call pot, nearly every single day. I openly preferred it to alcohol. I'd roll a joint after a show, put on some music on my reel-to-reel tape recorders, and let it soothe my insomnia so I could finally get some rest.
What was your favorite food?
Red beans and rice, without a doubt. It was the ultimate litmus test for my wife, Lucille, when we were courting. I asked her if she could cook it, and she had to scramble to learn her parents' recipe. When she served it to me, it was just what the doctor ordered, so I married her.
Did you have a favorite restaurant?
I didn't have one specific restaurant because I traveled so much, but I always had a deep love for takeout Chinese food late at night in my hotel rooms if I couldn't get my hands on home-cooked New Orleans food.
What was your favorite book?
I didn't spend a whole lot of time reading fiction books, but I loved reading and looking through my own massive collection of scrapbooks, letters, and the diaries I kept throughout my life.
Did you have any known rivalries?
No real rivalries, brother. Some of the younger bebop musicians later on had different ideas about where jazz should go, but I never held any ill will. I just wanted to play my music and give the public a great show.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
Back when I was performing at the Cotton Club, I noticed Lucille was selling cookies to the dancers and band members to make some extra money. I walked up to her and told her I wanted to buy every single cookie she had. Then, a member of my band and I took all those cookies and distributed them to the children at a local school. Lucille and I were pretty much inseparable after that.
What's your funniest behind-the-scenes moment?
Oh, just sitting in my dressing room after a long show, wearing nothing but my undershirt with a white handkerchief tied tightly around my head, fiddling with my trumpet valves, laughing and joking with any fans or old friends who wandered in. I looked like a character, but I was completely at peace.
Did you ever prank someone?
I love to play jokes and laugh, mostly by slipping my leave it all behind you toilet cards into people's pockets or luggage when they weren't looking, just to give them a big laugh later on.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
I wasn't an outlandish spender, but I did invest in two top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art reel-to-reel tape recorders that followed me absolutely everywhere on the road so I could record my thoughts, my music, and the world around me.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Don't try to prove nothing to nobody. Just focus on your craft, put your heart into it, and always remember to lay it on the public with a smile. If you can make someone else happy, you're already successful.
Pops, do you have any closing remarks about this interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
I just want to say, don't forget where you come from and keep a good melody in your life. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Calvin. It's been an absolute beautiful time talking with you.
Wow, what an unbelievable journey through the life of a true musical pioneer. From the rough streets of New Orleans to the global stage, Louis Armstrong showed us all how to find the joy and the music in any situation. And that wraps up another conversation from beyond the grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.